Welcome back to How Soccer Explains Leadership. Thank you so much for being a part of this show. As Paul and I always say, we're so appreciative of you. We couldn't do it without you. We'd just be talking with each other and our guests if you weren't listening in and being part of the conversation. So thank you. I'm Phil Dark, your host. And if you haven't done so already, I encourage you to join the Facebook group. It's something that I'm looking at 2022 to be the year that we really get deeper and deeper into these conversations. Something we've tried to do in different ways. I find that that's a great way that we can ask questions of each other. We can encourage each other and just build each other up and how we can lead better in our lives. So that's something I encourage you to do. If you haven't done so already, also rate and review the show wherever you're listening to it. That will help it get out to more people, and share it word of mouth. As I've said before, that is the best way to spread anything. So if you think it's helping you in your leadership, in your marriage, and your parenting, and all that you're doing, hopefully it will be helping other people too, and you can share that gift with them. So I encourage you to do all those things. And today, as usual, we have a great guest that I'm really getting excited to jump into a conversation with her and then to be able to share it with you. We have Cheryl McCormick. She is a sports research scientist, which is just really cool. That just sounds really cool. And she is the founder of Gravitational Performance, which we're going to get into that in a little bit, what that is. So Cheryl, how are you doing? Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. I'm doing good. Got my coffee, got my mindset. I'm
Fantastic.
good.
Fantastic. Yes. Well, as usual, we like to start our episodes by just, you get to share your story a little bit of how you developed your passion for sports, mental health, leadership, coaching coaches, and just really how you got to be where you are today.
Yeah, well, it starts when I was 11 and it ends today. No, I'm just kidding. 11 years old. I started running cross country, played basketball, was a cheerleader, ran track. I was very good at sports. Didn't have a clue half the time what I was doing, but I was just told, coaches were like, run, you're awesome, you're doing it, keep going. I did as a young athlete, played all the way up till I was 18 in 4 sports, MVP, athlete of the year, regional qualifiers, yada yada. Ran 2 years in a small college in Southern California for cross country. At that point is when I started to burn out, and I just moved away from sports. I was trying to figure out who I was supposed to be, what I was supposed to do in life. I actually went into nursing and worked at a brain injury unit, worked with in eating disorder, worked in injury rehabilitation clinics, worked behind sports medicine physicians, physical therapists. So that's really when I started getting back into a little bit of the sports and started realizing I really want to go back in. So at that point, I went back to school, obtained my undergraduate degree in sports science and sports studies, and then thought, what the heck, keep going. I never saw myself to do that. And I just pushed myself. I had a love and passion to continue growing in the sport industry. At that time, sports psychology was not as popular as it is today. It's just really resurfaced within the last 11 years or so. And went back and obtained a double master's degree in sports medicine, sports science, emphasizing sports psychology. A lot of people had asked me, why not specialize like most people do in sports? Be a nutritionist, be a whatever, coach, be this. I said, there's just 3 areas, and we'll get to that later, but there are 3 areas that I really wanted to focus on. And so really my motivation is just been not just one thing, but growing up in the sport industry and realizing the impacts that it had on me. And then as a young adult, going back to school and being in the workforce in a different discipline, if you will, and realizing where my true passions lie. And that's led me to where I'm at today. I'm currently finishing out a doctoral program, educational doctorate in sports management. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Obviously, it sounds like you're a lot older than you are with all that you've done already. So,
Yeah.
I have no idea how old you are exactly. I just know you're a lot younger than I am.
39. I will
Um,
tell you, 39.
so,
Yes.
all right. So, first thing, you're a sports research scientist. Like, what is that? What do you do as a sports research scientist?
I actually came up with the term. I've had a couple advisors say, Cheryl. And I'm like, nope, you know what? I don't do well with people telling me that I cannot do or I should do this. And it's okay. I take advice, constructive criticism. But I also just had somebody, I want to say a professional soccer coach, a strength and conditioning specialist over in Paris, just asked me yesterday, said, Cheryl, what does a sports research scientist do? And I said, well, let me tell you. Research is my passion. I absolutely love to research. And obviously, you will know, and many others who are in education, the higher you get in education, the more research is on your plate. And so, it was one thing that I actually was scared of, intimidated by, didn't care for with research when I was younger. But I realized over the years of my passion that it was the research that was helping guide and direct me. The more research I stumbled on, the more accuracy, I'll say that, in mental, physical performance, I realized research is really where it's at. Because as a research scientist, I'm able to whether conduct research myself with other groups and other people, or just research on the latest trending topics and what's working. So as a sports research scientist, that is literally what it is. I am working on research, and it falls under the science of sports. So anything that can be implemented to better mental or physical performance.
Yeah. And so you're not just stopping at the research though, right? You're helping people to bridge that theory practice gap that always exists whenever you have research. I've been doing work with orphan and vulnerable kids all around the world for the last 13 years. And if there's ever a theory practice gap, that's one. You have ivory towers where we sit up here, we research and we do stuff. Then you put it into practice. I mean, just as parents, we know that, right? Like, we have all these theories, great parenting books, and you read them and you're like, but that didn't work with my 5 kids or your 2 kids. Or you have two kids, right? 2 boys?
I have 2 boys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and we realized
busy.
real quick, like, well, in my home, that theory just doesn't, it flies out the window, right? So with that, how are you doing that? You have gravitational performance. Tell us what that is. And then really discuss the mission, vision, values, and how you are really wanting to help coaches with this research that you're doing and everything else that you're doing in gravitational performance.
That's a loaded question. Gravitational performance. So I started that about 13 years ago. I liked the idea of just having an organization because I realized that I wasn't just going to be a coach. Although a lot of people call me Coach McCormick, I'm not just a coach. I guide, I educate. So gravitational performance really was founded on the concept of providing consulting services for athletes, mainly athletes at that time, because that's really all I knew in my undergraduate was as a former athlete myself and how I can help provide educational content and deliver, the best advice out there. So I started small, and that's really what it was. I followed under the 3 disciplines in which I'm passionate about today, and I consider myself a continued specialist, if you will, always learning in sports nutrition, psychology, and sports medicine. So that's really where gravitational performance was. Today, we'll just say over the course of several years, I've added to it, and I've gotten to branch out and work with world-class athletes, coaches around from, Olympic coaches and youth coaches, everybody and anybody I wanted to pull in and say, I'm not stopping here. I'm not sports specific. I want to be able to provide outstanding and quality educational content from the latest research. And so you might notice that it's gravitational performance and now School of Sports Science. So since I've gone back and obtained all my education, I've really had a passion with bringing sports science more into the States because it's not as common as places like the UK. And I wanted to open up a school in sports science. So that is a goal, and I'm working on it. But in terms of where it's at today, it's still similar in terms of working with athletes, but I've incorporated working with parents because I believe that's a vital component to an athlete's overall success, especially at the youth level of sports. And it's a very trending topic, if you will. I think we've talked on Clubhouse several times where we get the parents involved and there's a lot of conflict and how the parents can support coaches and support their athletes. So I thought, I'm going to provide services for them as well. But today I'm really focusing on, for my dissertation, as well as what I want to do is allowing educational advice, consulting services, if you will, for college coaches. And that's really my passion today, is to be able to provide coaches with the outlet, with motivational content, with the ability to receive outstanding education. Off-season training is where they receive the educational content from me. And that's more sports specific, obviously. And then in season is more of the motivation, because listen, we all know coaches work extremely hard. They're gone a lot of the time. And we work so much on providing outstanding efforts for our athletes, from, sports medicine to nutrition to sports psychology. D1 schools have that in-house, but what about the coaches? NCAA offers various, clinics and on continued education classes for their coaches, but realistically, coaches, they don't have the time to just sit and take a weekend long class. And so my focus today is just that, is to develop a really good working relationship with every coach, and it be the program in which that I structure specifically tailored to that person and their unique personality too. So that is where I'm at today with Gravitational Performance.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that it's, as you said, and we talked about offline as well, the idea of it being tailored to the coach, because we know that there's no one situation. It's not, all coaches are not going through the same thing, and they're all different. And as every kid's different, right? So when you're talking about, and can you just talk a little bit about, you talked about nutrition, talk about sports psychology, talked about sports medicine, really the rest and recover side of things. And so much of that is both preventative and reactive, so to speak, right? You are preventing injuries through proper nutrition, through rest and recovery. You're also helping to nurse injuries and stuff through that proper rest and recovery, right? And the sports psychology is the same way, is preventative from having burnout and breakdowns, but it's also how can we, in the midst of issues, in the midst of, usually we wait for the issue and then we do stuff about it.
Exactly.
Right? Can you talk about the importance of using it as a preventative? Because somebody's like, oh yeah, it's not an issue for me, so I don't really need it. Exactly. Why is it important to do as a preventative, as something that we need to, and what does that look like?
Well, I mean, hey, we realize that we're all human. We all make mistakes. We all think that we're better and we don't need this, or when you're, in terms of eating right and you can allow yourself to eat a little bit of bad. But the older we get and the more that we're adding on our plate mentally, it will impact our physical. And in terms of what I offer for coaches, is going to be the same in terms of nutrition, psychological aspects, stressors, environmental, personal, yada, yada. If we're not taking care of that and we're not proactive, then how good are we for the athletes, right? As a coach, how good are we coming back home and bringing it back to the home front? So realistically, it is extremely important, if not much more important, for the coach to make sure that they're staying on top of this. A lot of the stuff that I work on too isn't brand new. It's not, it's more of an aha moment. Like, I know this, but I have so much on my plate that it's been in the closet for a while. So let me bring it back to you and give you some aha moments, but in terms of why it's important to be proactive is just like I said, because if you're not good for yourself as a coach, then how good are you going to be showing up for your athletes? And also we lead by example. Coaches lead by example. We want to be, ingrain the best kind of person, build the best kind of player on and off the field. And so if you're not doing that as a coach, then how are your athletes doing that as a coach, especially college athletes that are becoming independent and about to walk out there in the real world and get professional jobs? So as the coach, absolutely being proactive and taking care of the rest and recovery. And something, I don't know if you want to talk about it now, but rest and recovery is not in terms of an injured athlete who needs to go sit in a hot ice bath and, be seeing a therapist, physical therapist. It's literally rest and recovery every single day on your mindset for a coach, being able to turn your phone off, shut it, put it away, not take any more work calls, and be in the present moment for yourself, as well as going home and being part of your family. That is the main support and soundboard for you. So, being proactive in all areas is major.
Yeah. Let's dive into that a little bit more. I want to just make very clear why we do this show. It's not just sports, by the way. Any leader, everybody, whatever you're doing, if you're in the business that's the furthest away from sports, or if you're a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad who are at home doing this stuff is critical for all of us, whatever you're doing. And for our kids, the younger they learn it, the better. Right.
Yeah.
So let's go into that, just rest and recovery part. All of them are interconnected, as you talked about, all the psychology and the nutrition and the rest and recovery. It's all interconnected. If you're just doing one, it's not going to be good enough. But let's just focus on this rest and recovery for a bit. You talked a little bit about that, but what does that look like? Because we talk about self-leadership and self-care. If you're not taking care of yourself, you won't be able to do anything. We're much good for others. Yeah. But what does that look like?
Rest and recovery. It's I know it's on rest and recover, but we're recovering. So from the mental aspect, all the stuff that we endure every day. And I appreciate you saying that in terms of, it's not, a lot of what I do is focused around the sports and the athletic performance or the coach's performance, but it really rolls over to just the average, any 9 to 5, anybody, your weight loss, recover, whatever it is. Rest and recovery is literally after getting off work, after enduring a lot mentally or physically, you're allowing yourself downtime to breathe, whether it's relaxation techniques, whether it's listening to some soothing music, whether it's going and treating yourself. That's part of your rest phase, because you're shutting off the stressors that are impacting you, which are going to be considered environmental and sometimes personal. But if you don't allow rest and recovery, proper nutrition, proper sleep, self-care, self-love, so to speak, then you're not really recovering yourself. And in terms for an athlete, it's different, right? They need proper nutrition. They need to really rest their bodies from the physical aspects, from everything that they've endured. But coaches do too, because they're traveling, they have different types of stressors impacting them. So it's really different for everybody. My rest and recovery phase might be completely different for somebody like you or for the coach, right? Are they able to put their phone away? Are they able to not take the athletic director's phone call? It's an important message. So how do you stop yourself? It could be breathing techniques. It could be meditation. It could be taking a bath. It could be just going out and having a nice meal, being mindful of what it is that you need to do to take care of yourself and to be the best the next day. So
absolutely. And, and part of the DISC training that we do on the behavioral side of things and the personalities, there's exactly what you just said. Some people, it may be going out for a walk with their spouse. Some people, it may be going into a room and just being by themselves and saying, I can't talk to anybody. Other people, like you said, it may be having a meal and sharing a meal either by yourself or sharing a meal with someone else, right? What does that look like? You can't just say, here's what Cheryl does, therefore it works for me. It's not that way. And that's why it is important to tailor it. It's why it's important to take a step back and be honest with yourself. And that self-awareness to go, how am I wired? What does that look like? What will it look like for me to actually rest? And then not be fooling yourself and saying, well, rest for me is work. Well, no, that's not the way it works, right?
Yeah.
And I've talked to many people who have said that. They're like, no, I just need to work more. That's my rest. I get energy from that. That's a lie. Flat out is a lie. And workaholics, definitely, I was an attorney for 8 years. I saw it. I know it.
Yes.
It's a disease, right? It's something that we need to say, and it is making us sick and it's burning us out. So
Well,
anyway,
and that's and now really quick on that, a
yeah.
really important aspect to this is that here's the reality. There are several different types of continuing education classes, because I consider what I do continued education for coaches. A lot of obviously D1 coaches have to have a bachelor's degree. Some of them have master's degree, but that means nothing. It absolutely means nothing. It goes out the door eventually because they're focused on their job.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of what schools and colleges provide coaches, is some of continuing education. The problem is the rest of the recovery phase. It is literally something that I focus on, is having that unique relationship with my coaches. So I understand their personality type. I understand what's going to work for you. Are you going to be that kind of coach that's, well, my downtime is me getting emails out and doing this, but that's not rest and recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to be tailored specifically to each individual coach. It's not just a one size fits all kind of thing. Yep. But unfortunately, a lot of continued education is just that. That's right. It is literally by the book. This is what we do. So is that resonating to you? Is it soaking in? Probably not. Right. Nothing's going to change. So.
Well, we find that with pretty much all of our education, right? Yeah. Unfortunately, if it's not a individualized education of whatever, I'm not going to get into that conversation, but we do that. We teach to a text, or we teach to a book. We teach to a, here's the stuff you need to learn it, and now go. And yeah. And school's not made for every personality style. Let's leave it at that. But neither are, like you said, we do webinars, we do courses, we do online stuff, and it works for some, and some absolutely love it. But it's typically the people that are like the person who made the course are the ones who love that course.
Yeah.
Right. And some information isn't great for online, same way some information isn't great taught by a certain person. And so, I mean, everyone knows that just by virtue. If you've been through university, a great professor can make the most boring subject really exciting.
Yeah.
And a not so great professor can make the best subject in the world very
have
boring.
A lot of that. Yes.
So, and that's the reality. Somebody like, oh yeah, I tried that, I didn't like. Well, it doesn't work that way, right? It's like sports psychology. It's like, the mindset. Talking with Brad Miller, talking with you about it. It's something that just say, oh yeah, I tried meditation, didn't work. Well, yeah, it may not work for you to go sit in a room for 45 minutes, especially if you try to just do that right off the bat. If you're a high I, very outgoing personality, it won't work for you, right?
There's different steps. There's things that you have to be ready for. Yeah. Yeah, so, absolutely.
So we could talk for hours and hours of this, I have no doubt. But we're not going to. If people want to learn more about it, definitely connect with Cheryl. We're going to have, we'll get you the website. Actually, why don't you just tell everyone the website right now so they can go and connect with you that way?
Yeah, it's www.gravitationalperformance.org.
Okay. Easy. And we'll have that. Yeah, we'll have that on the website. The link to that on the show notes for this show. All right. Well, let's transition a little bit, and you talked about playing different sports. Noticeably absent from that list was soccer, which is perfectly fun. But you played competitive sports, and you played a few of them, and you did very well. So what did you learn from those sports that you've used in your program, your coaches, as well as just your leadership and what you're doing?
I've been asked this question a million times, and I sit and really think about it, and I can't really put it like many people can say, oh, I learned this one thing. I haven't really learned something in particular other than self-discipline. Just showing up is a big deal, right? Because I go back and I always think about when I was a young athlete, what it was at that time. I'm a different person today. So really where I was at in that time was completely different. It was the passion, the motivation, the drive, sometimes waking up and realizing like, why am I going to run 6 miles from cattle guard to cattle guard in Texas? And why the heck am I doing this to myself? Today I look at it, well, I showed up. I had to have some type of discipline, motivation, something that drove me to continue doing. And today, really, that's what it is self-discipline for me. I mean, I've had to, and I've spoken to you about this. I'm a full-time mom. I homeschool 2 boys. My husband has been a special operations Marine for almost 17 years. I run an organization. I'm, in school. It's just nonstop. A lot of that is self-discipline. And sports has taught me to show up, or else nothing's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's on me. So self-discipline, really.
Yeah. No, and that's
that.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely. It's a great great lesson that we can all take from it. And it's absolutely true. I mean, I think about that. I mean, it just recently I got a text from a kid who's like, I got all these different things going on and I'm not gonna be able to make practice every day. And you want to work with people, but at the same time, you got to say, well, to be part of the team, you need to show up.
Yeah.
And you got to figure it out. And coach high school, and we talk to our girls and we say, look, in life, you need to learn to balance everything. So if you can't make practice every once in a while, that's one thing. But if it's a regular thing, at what point do you cease to be part of the team? Do you cease to be part of the what we're doing? And so, absolutely. And that applies literally to everything.
It does.
You just told your boss, hey boss, I can't show up half the time. They'd be like, well, find a different job.
Okay, bye.
Exactly.
Yeah, see you later.
So, all right. This is a total shock. This is a shocker question for you. It's an age-old question. I need you to help resolve this debate that's been going on for decades, at least. Is cheerleading a sport?
Oh my gosh. Did you really just ask me that?
I did. Because
let me ask you this. I'm going to throw a question back at you. I'm good. Everybody knows Cheryl's good at. Is dance a sport?
Well, and that was where I was going to go with it. And that's the question I asked you. So that's the beauty of being the host. I can ask the question and then I can wait for your answer and then I just respond to it.
I'll just have you on my podcast and ask you that back. If that's going to be the title. Is dance a sport with Phil Dork? Yes, cheerleading is a sport. I believe that anything in competition, anything that takes training, anything that works the mental and the physical is a sport. Is gaming sports, esports? Yeah, they're sports. Is my husband's job a sport? Absolutely. So yes, cheerleading is a sport. And it's something that comes up a lot because people are like, wait, what? You were a cheerleader? I know. And maybe I'll send you that and you can post that cheerleading photo of me up there. I was a flyer and I did the gymnastics, tumbling on all that, but it was a sport that was we can have a whole episode on that. I did it from 11 to 18. I was offered several scholarships to go cheer, and I was very good. Won some NCAA awards for tumbling, yada yada. But cheerleading just was like, no, it wasn't for me. So I'm sorry for you cheerleaders out there. You got it.
Nothing to apologize.
I was a track athlete. That was my favorite thing. So
you confirmed it was a sport for him. So I don't think you gotta,
it's a sport.
And what I think the important thing there, you define the term, right? So some people will define sport differently and they might say dance is not, and all these other things are not. And the fact of the matter is it's a silly debate, right? At the end of the day, it's silly. It's crazy some of the things dancers do. Watching So You Think You Can Dance. We watched that with my kids.
Oh, wow.
And then when they did the athleticism stuff, I don't know if you ever watched that show, but they did a thing like at Nike, I think it was. Yeah. And they went and saw the performance and the actual the flexibility and movement and athleticism, however they determined it. And the dancers were like off the charts. And that's why you see a lot of these football players going, like, I remember Willie Galt back in the day was a receiver for the Bears, and he went and did the ballet with like the Chicago, whatever the ballet company was. And he became a better receiver, right? You know, and that's the cross-discipline stuff we talk about in sports, right? To play different sports is critical, and kids are losing that nowadays. To do dance, I did drama as a kid and loved it, right? And that's team, right? That's being able to do stuff and, orchestras and seeing how they come together. If you're not on the same page, literally they call it, I mean, that's a saying we have, right? If you're not on the same sheet of music, that comes from, obviously, if you're not playing on that, it's going to be ugly. Same thing in sports, same thing in cheerleading and dance, all that, right?
It's around the board.
How do we gauge it? It's the athleticism is unbelievable. So
it's that competition, it's that team cohesion, that building of character and who you become. I mean, there's a lot to cheerleading that many people don't understand or recognize. It takes hours and hours and hours of of training and figuring out that routine, especially if you're, I know for us in Texas, cheerleading is big. Cheerleading is a big sport in Texas. Football and cheerleading, and those two, I mean, I haven't ever told anybody this. I've been on so many podcast webinars, but I played in bands. I played the clarinet from probably about the same time, 12, 13, all the way up to 18.
Nice.
So I would be in my cheerleading uniform, and then I would be in the marching band halftime. And then I would, the next day go and I don't know, whatever it was, I would, be running at track, so I was always in sports. So anything that I could do to keep myself active mentally and physically, that is a sport.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And it reminds me, as you talked about that, where I'd go from soccer practice to the drama, rehearsal, and it was always fun, they're all different cultures though, too. That's a whole different podcast.
Yeah.
I think it's why I've always been kind of on the fringes of a lot of different groups, because I appreciate all of them. They're all a blast. But talk about mental side of the game. I remember my conversation with one of my best friends, and he his daughter got a full ride to TCU as a cheerleader, and he would talk about the intensity of, if she doesn't land this, or if she doesn't do this exactly right, she's out of the whatever, the travel squad or this. And she was stressing out, because you get dropped, or if you do this or you do that, it's like one mistake and you're gone. And it's like, my gosh. So
it's holding that position, right? If you're like cheer captain, like I was for a long time, and I had some other girls, please, I hope they're not watching this, but they were fighting for that position, it was tough. I had a natural gift, and I'm blessed with that, to be able to tumble, and I didn't have to go and practice. And a lot of athletes do, a lot of cheerleaders do, have to go to gymnastics every weekend and go and do those classes. A lot of people don't understand the different dynamics that do go into it, but the mental is that girls, cheerleaders are, it's a tough love. And if you fail, then the rest of the team will fail. So that's a big deal. Everything is on you. And if you don't show up, the rest of the team might fall. You might be that person that is holding them up. You might be their base, really. So a lot of pressure to perform, very much so. I mean, I remember several competitions, and if you don't land it, if you don't have your hands straight, if you're, if you're thrown up in the air and you move wrong or you fall, it causes the rest of the team to fall, and it's all on you. So there's a lot of pressure in that sport.
Yeah, no, the teamwork is, to even just watch some of those things. There's a lot goes into all these different things, right? And so they're all different performances, so to speak, whether it's soccer or football. I mean, in football, if the lineman decides to go a different way, it's going to cause an injury probably, right? Same thing in cheerleading. If one person's like, oh, you know what, I don't feel like catching her right now. Well, that's going to, and you see little things that happens, major injuries, right? So, and I think hearing this, even just talking about both you and me, we've done a lot of different things. And I think that helps with the perspective with coaching people on different things. I think it's why we probably are drawn to that too, because we see these different aspects of it from different, we see the commonalities, we see the things that are the same. So we can come into really any sport. It doesn't really matter what it is. We use soccer here because that's my main sport. But I could talk to, we talked to lacrosse coaches here, talking with you, talking with Corey Close of UCLA basketball, like all these different people who are at different levels, but the conversations are really around a lot of the same things, right? And I
It is.
think that's what is, going back to, sports psychology stuff too, is hopefully we're not just using this in sports and leaving it there, right? If we're not taking the lessons from these sports, we're wasting, I think, what most of sports is teaching us and able to do for us. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. And I mean, a lot of things that were taught, going back to my early education was just that. I mean, why do you play sports? Why do you enter your kids in sports? Why do people join sports teams? A lot of it, there's many different aspects. There's many different reasons. Whether you didn't play when you were younger, but all of a sudden you realize that you're part of a team today. But I mean, sports can bring so much to us, and you just have to be open to it. You may have never been you may be an introvert, and now you've joined a team, a CrossFit team, whatever, and now you absolutely have a passion and drive to be around others and to to inspire or lead. It's your motivation, it's your cup of coffee, if you will. So
Yeah.
I mean, self-discipline, everything. I mean, it rolls over into the workplace, it rolls over into your family life. There's a lot that goes that can be applied outside of the sports sector. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
All right. Well, the next question always love to hear how people answer this one. But what is your personal why, your life purpose, and how is that playing out in what you're doing?
My life purpose is to help others, whether it's guiding them educationally, whether it's motivation. It's just to be able to deliver what God's given me, and if I can do that for the next person, it doesn't matter what age, what level, even if you're outside of the sports sector, that's my purpose, is to be able to provide my knowledge, my assistance, and to bettering in terms of the sport community. It's to better the coaches, to better the athletes, to be a soundboard, to be able to say, hey, I understand what you're going through. Let's try to figure this out. So
now, I mean, I think that's why we connect. I think that's our similar whys that help others flourish and make good things better is mine. And so that sounds like you're very similar.
Leaving a legacy
regard.
there.
Yep,
yeah,
absolutely. So on that, when you're working with these coaches, what is one thing, and it could be a couple, but what is it that you hope all the coaches, players that you work with, parents that you work with, that you impact, that they'll understand and live out as they experience what gravitational performance have to offer?
Well, I hope that they can, whether it be somebody that's going in, maybe they're assistant coach, maybe they're new to this, or maybe it's a coach that's been in for a long time, 20 years plus, I just hope that they can take away what it is that they came in for and what they started working with me, their goals. They can achieve their goals, whether it be to eat better, to, be more mindful, to stress less, to learn something new that they haven't learned. Ultimately, though, that it's the guidance, and that, coaches realize that they do need somebody there. I'm not an assistant. I'm not a bookkeeper. I'm not somebody that's going to say, okay, I'll make that phone call for you. I am literally a motivation, and I am literally education. And with that, I hope that coaches can take that away and say, you know what? Gravitational performance helped me. Coach McCormick, Cheryl, whatever, helped me in my process, even as a weathered coach, somebody who's been in the industry for a long time. I wish that I had this when I was younger coming in, and it can go so many directions because I offer so much information and guidance for coaches.
Yep. But as you said, they got to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
The best coaches continue and always learn. They don't just shut the door and say, well, got my degree, or I'm done, or whatever. And here's the thing, my former years in nursing, I worked with patient care. I learned a lot about helping out, taking care of people, personalities. I realized that continued education is where it's at. Our research is always changing. Now, are we finding new things? Not all the time, but we're finding better ways to change the performance, whether it's the physical or the psychological. And there's, like we said earlier, there's some professors, there's some coaches that can deliver it in a better way. And really, oh, I get it now, versus, okay, flip the page to number 5 and here, read this, I feel that coaches, they deserve that. And the best coaches that I've seen, they're always eager to learn, whether it's self-help books, motivation, guidance. Now, I've written about this, but it scrapes the surface. Self-help books only scrape the surface and can only go so far. They're great because it might be like a light bulb just came on, and that screams to me because that's something that I'm going through right now as a coach. I'm tired, but how far do they really take it? And that's my goal, is to push them past that point so you can actually start implementing it, whether it's bettering their performance or their team's performance. So, yeah.
Well, like you said, I think the best coaches are learners and are continually learning. But I believe this: everybody needs a coach. Everyone needs a mentor. Everyone needs someone to push them.
Yeah.
And I don't care who you are. You need someone to push you to be better. Otherwise, you're going to go stagnant. Otherwise, it's too easy to just rest on our laurels, especially the higher we get in whatever we're doing. If you're the coach at #1 school in the country, it's easy to say, man, I must be doing something right. What do they know? How can they help me? The reality is, everybody needs someone to walk alongside them, to push them to be better, because you can always be better. You're never perfect. And you can always be better. And so, and the reality is, we all know, just go to the gym and work out. If someone's not pushing you, you will not go to what you can do. I have a guy who reminds me every time I go to him, and that's why I stay away from him, quite frankly, that your body can do a lot more than you think it can do. Your mind can do a lot more than you think it can do. The more we have on brain, research and neuroscience, and to hear the plasticity of the brain and how our brain is continually renewing itself, and how are we doing that? How are we making it healthy versus toxic? All these things, that's in the last 20 probably years. It's crazy. When I started doing the orphan care stuff, they were like, well, if you don't catch them by 2-3 years old, they're kind of out of luck. And you're like, well, that's depressing. And then brain science obviously changes. And then it's like, nope, it can actually be renewed. Like, this is amazing, right? So
you have to have the right people. You have to have the right person, though. And that's why it's so important for me. And that's why I can't stress it enough. Schools might have a process or a program that they offer. Oh, you want continued education, you want to, whatever, up your certifications, whatever, take these classes. But it's not about that. That's not what it's about. It's about you showing up. And how do you get somebody who's stubborn or been in the industry for so long to say they need to show up? It's by understanding them as an individual and motivating them in a way that a book or a class isn't going to do that, So, but you have to have the right person by your side to help motivate you through that process.
Absolutely.
And keep you there. Yeah.
All right. Well, we have the last couple questions we ask everybody. One of them may be a similar answer. It may not be. Maybe something completely different. I don't know. But what lessons have you learned directly from the sports that you've played that you have used in your marriage and your parenting?
Oh my. Well, so I said I'm married to a special operations Marine. I can't say that in my parenting I'm there yet. Not like you. They're kind of just jumping in. And a lot of people actually would say, Cheryl, I bet your kids are going to be amazing athletes. Look at you, you've done it, No, that's not my goal. That's not my focus, is to make them a mini me.
Right.
So I really haven't implemented too much in there. I try to stay out and stay away from the coaches, and because then it's human nature to become judgmental and want to critique on the sideline, but I just let them do their thing. So right now they're too young, but in terms of my marriage and my life, I would say that, some of the best advice that I've given my husband, that he can also give to the other guys that he's worked with for many years, is the mental mindset aspect and the rest and recovery. Everything that I believe in, that I believe is a vicious cycle, it's the same in terms of that. A lot of that comes home because that's at the forefront of somebody like myself. I'm married to his job, literally.
Mhm.
We move, we do this. He's gone. I'm having to change my dynamics. But self-discipline, it's big, and it's in our marriage too. So
Yep.
that's a whole different podcast. I could say so much to that, from nutrition to everything, but I believe that, like we said earlier, that a lot of things that I cover can play out outside of the sports, the sports spectrum. So,
Yep.
and yeah, we can go on and on for that.
Yeah, it's funny you say that.
Yeah.
You talk about the rest and recovery and nutrition. I just did disc training with my daughter's 13-year-old soccer team, and it was really interesting. I had to totally tailor it for it, did it differently than I normally do. Had to change some words up, whatever. But my daughter was there, and so I actually put her on the spot a couple of times, which is funny because she's super reserved, so she doesn't like that. But it was the example I used was my personality style. When I'm unhealthy, when I'm stressed, I get angry. And now that I'm self-aware about that, I try to count to 5 or whatever it is that I know I don't ever do that, but maybe take a break, take a breath, go outside, whatever, get away is typically what I have to do.
Yeah.
But if I'm hungry, that hangry thing is a real
It's
deal
real.
for certain personality styles, especially, right?
Yeah.
Others might withdraw. Others might get hypercritical. Others might just, do other things.
Yeah.
But when I said to her, I said, so Kirsten, when I'm hungry, when I'm tired, when I'm doing different things, I get angry pretty quick, huh? And she goes, yeah, you do. They know, right? And so these things are critical. And again, in sports, if you're not getting the proper recovery, if you're not getting the proper nutrition, you're not going to be a great teammate. You're going to get hurt more easily. You're going to burn out more easily. All these things are absolutely true. And that applies to life 100%.
And that's learning self-awareness, though.
Yep.
That's something that could be taught at a young age. It's very difficult because I've been asked several times, my early childhood or my early, years in sports. And it's just that I was clueless to a lot of things. Had I had somebody like me, I would have thrived, and I just said that I picked up a golf athlete. She's 4-time state, or well, hopefully this year, 4-time state in golf. But, I'm like, I didn't have somebody to work with me in terms of recognizing that. A lot of coaches don't even know that,
right.
They're too busy focusing on their athletes and getting them to perform. So the school, they don't get fired. So who's working on them? How do they, or how do they become self-aware of, I'm hangry and I need this, so that's the start of it, is identifying, recognizing that,
Absolutely.
So
100%. 100%. All right. Last question. Always bittersweet because it means we're at the end of the episode, but I also like to learn. So what have you read, listened to, or watched that has most impacted your thinking on how sports explain life and leadership?
I love sports shows. All American. I love that show. I know. I'm sorry if you really, Cheryl. All American. What is the other show? Friday Night Lights.
Oh, so good.
That's older.
So good.
So good. I mean, those shows, and there's another one, Last Chance U. Is that it?
Yeah, that is. I have not watched that, but yeah,
they're good. What they do for me, and I'll find myself watching as I'm trying to take notes. So something we didn't cover. I'm also a content developer for education, and I create a lot of content. Just started a interactive publication magazine. First issue's out just a week ago. Anyways, I like to dive in and watch those shows. Last Chance U, I want to say, is really motivating for me because I get to see from the real life perspective. It's not just what drama. There's drama in it, but I get to kind of see how the coaches are in different sports that I didn't engage in. Mm-hmm. So I can take my personal experiences as a former athlete in yada, 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 but I get to see soccer coaches and football coaches, primarily football, American football, but, and I can actually put that to play and realize, okay, well, there's a lot of coaches that are angry and have a lot of stress and they take it on the teams and how they communicate and all this stuff. So what I take from those shows is just that. I realize that is the reality of sports. It scares athletes away. It motivates some athletes. It, how well do the coaches succeed in their professions? There's a lot of things that I can take away from TV shows and just, other than just, hey, I used to do that. I understand that as an athlete, or he's a team leader, so yeah.
No, absolutely.
Hopefully I answered that question, right?
Absolutely, you did. Yeah, and it's funny because I started watching All American because my kids were watching it. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't, it was okay. And I got hooked. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting story. They did a good job with that.
Yeah.
Even my son though, he's like, yeah, the acting's not great in it. I'm like, yeah, it's not, it could be better, but you know what? It's not that bad. I've seen a lot worse, that's for sure. So but yeah, I think I watch things differently now, like you were talking about, to be able to watch the coaches and to be able to see, okay, how, what are the issues here? How could we help that? What could that look like? What, where are the things that they aren't self-aware, that they are, and then because they're not self-aware, this is happening, that's happening. And that's, you see most things when you're looking from the other side could have been prevented with appropriate, conversations, with better parenting, quite frankly, a lot of times. But as coaches, we are going to be parents sometimes to the kids too. And that's just the way it is. But if we're not healthy in who we are, and we're more focused on wins and losses and everything else than the health of the team, as we talk about, the dirty little secret is when you're healthy as a person, when you're healthy as a team, you're going to win more games.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
You got to have the talent, of course, but
you got to have the team cohesion. That's the biggest thing. It's the athlete to coach relationship and vice versa, the coach to athlete relationship. And that's a major factor in there. And I'm able to step out and see that today, like you were saying. They also really highlight, they do good on shows like All American, highlight on trending topics, if you will, that are taking, as of current in our society. And so I'm able to really step back and be like, okay, I see that perspective.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. All right. Well, thank you again for being a part of the show, for being part of the conversation. Really enjoy getting to know you a little bit on Clubhouse, as you talked about. Also, just our conversations we've been able to have. So thanks for being part of the show.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, folks. Well, thanks again for your download. Thanks again for being part of the conversation, just for engaging. It definitely wouldn't be the same without you. So if you want to connect with Cheryl, we'll have all that information on the show notes, and we'll have also the different ways to get a hold of me. And if you want to get a hold of Paul, you do that. Just do that through email us at phil@howsoccerexplainsleadership.com. And we'll go from there. But most importantly, we hope that you're taking everything you're learning from this show, you're using it to help you to be a better parent, to be a better spouse, to be a better leader in whatever you're doing. And you're using it all to help you understand that sports and soccer explain life and leadership. Thanks a lot. Have a great week.
Bye.